Yeah, Disney brought it back. Don't ask me how, they just kind of did. Phineas and Ferb is one of those shows that I didn't grow up with, but here's the thing. I have kids, and they grew up with this show. And I remember the first time I encountered Phineas and Ferb. I remember they were watching, maybe it was Disney Channel, or maybe it was like even Saturday morning cartoons. That might be as early as this was. But they were watching this, and they did this song where they go, bow, chicka, bow, wow. That's what my baby's, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is great. And I don't know, there's something about this that just kind of draws you in. Phineas and Ferb was a cartoon that was made back when cartoons were really kind of going out of style. This is before like Steven Universe or Adventure Time started gaining momentum. This was basically, this was a thing that really shouldn't have worked, but kind of did. And I'm not really sure if Disney was even prepared for the landslide of popularity that this show had. If you're not familiar with Phineas and Ferb, it pretty much has the same plot every time. And you might think like, oh my gosh, that's pretty bad. Well, if you think about a show called Scooby-Doo, it was pretty much the same plot every time. And I found that when they fiddled with that, it didn't really work as well. And with the Phineas and Ferb plot, they can essentially go outside of its little box, but for the most part, it stays pretty much whole. If you're not familiar with the plot line, it takes place all during one summer, and apparently this new season is taking place in the next summer after that. So the characters haven't really aged much. They haven't changed any of the character models. I guess that works out really well for them. But essentially, the premise is that these two boys, Phineas and Ferb, and they are a blended family. They are stepbrothers. And they are constantly, for some reason, they have this innate, intelligent ability to build incredible things. And at first a few episodes, they were just like building things that were made of like objects around the house and were very clearly objects around the house. But as it, eventually they started making things like shrink rays and stuff like that. They could just build anything up. They just had this ability to do this. And the boys have a sister named Candace who's always trying to bust them for this thing. There's really no point other than spider malice for her to do this, but she tries to do this anyway. Now, coupled with this plot line, there's an evil scientist, and this has nothing to do with the Phineas and Ferb family. There's this evil scientist named Dr. Doofenshmirtz, who's always trying to create some weapon of mass destruction or some sort of evil thing. And the boys, Phineas and Ferb, they have this pet platypus who's simultaneously a secret agent who's always trying to stop Doofenshmirtz. And just talking about this sounds absolutely stupid. This sounds like this should not work. But here's the thing, it does. Its humor is very intelligent. Phineas and Ferb is one of those shows that has jokes that really only adults can get, and they're not innuendo type jokes, but it's like they're referencing something. There was an episode where they referenced Citizen Kane, for crying out loud. What kid is going to know that reference? They just did it. So I really liked the very first episode of this season, which, if you are not familiar with the Phineas and Ferb format, it uses those 2 11-minute episode type thing. And usually the first episode is not related to the second episode, and sometimes they do a full half-hour length episode. Those are really some of their best ones, honestly. And this show really, this show predates Rick and Morty, but it actually kind of goes into some Rick and Morty territory sometimes, as far as like taking science fiction concepts and putting a really interesting spin on them. But it doesn't go the existential nihilistic trend. Phineas and Ferb is all about having fun. It's all about taking advantage of all the free time you have this summer to be creative and to have fun. And I think that's a great message overall. So on the first episode, something just kind of really incredible happens. If you're not familiar with the Phineas and Ferb ending, usually, like I said, there's the Phineas and Ferb invention building thing, and then there's the Dr. Doofenshmirtz plot. And these plots often intersect, because usually the boys build some sort of device, and then Dr. Doofenshmirtz has this other device, and when Perry tries to sabotage the device starts firing and stuff like that, just willy-nilly, and it usually hits whatever the boys were building, and then that device disappears before Candace can get her mom out to see what the boys have been up to, and that stops her bust of them. And in this case, they did this one episode where the boys built something absolutely nuts. I don't remember what they built at the beginning here, but it's the usual Phineas and Ferb thing, though. It's like, I'm not even sure if they would even get in trouble if they ever kind of, if they ever did this. Honestly, I think the mom would be pretty impressed with it. But some of the stuff they build is darn right dangerous, and I have to admit, like, so far no casualties have happened in case of Phineas and Ferb's inventions yet. So in this case, pretty much the plot of the usual plot happens, where Dr. Doofenshmirtz's device starts firing willy-nilly, and you think it's going to hit the boys' device and disintegrate it or make it vanish before Candace's mom finds out. Instead, it hits Candace's mom. And I went like, oh my gosh, they really did that. And she disappears. And I'm going like, oh my gosh, is she dissolved? What happened to her? And then they spend the next episode just explaining, and then they try to get the mom back. And in some cases, there are episodes in which Phineas and Ferb build something, and Candace goes along for the ride because she realizes, like, okay, for the greater good, I can't just bust my brothers on this. I have to do something. And the boys have created a device that can help bring mom back. Therefore, I'm going to help them. And that's what was the case of this. And it was one of the better episodes, and it definitely was a good start. I watched one episode the other day, which was just, I swear a lot of drugs happened before making this thing. I love Dan Parvenmeyer and Jeff Swampy Marsh. I don't think they do stuff like that, but I will have to, I'm sure you've watched his TikToks because he's one of the most popular TikTokers on here, but I swear this one had this zoetrope that was just kind of, very quickly disappeared early in the thing, and then it starts rolling and rolling and then falls in love with a Ferris wheel and then has little babies with it. I swear that is what is happening on that. And I went like, what am I watching here? This is just crazy. And I thought, but that's Phineas and Ferb sometimes. And, with Phineas and Ferb, I just don't really think, I feel like there is a limit to as far as like how much you can take this. And it does feel like a show that is going to be like, say, The Simpsons or Family Guy, where essentially they're going to keep doing this. And really, you're only going to get a good gem of an episode maybe every 10 episodes or something like that. With The Simpsons, it's usually one gem per season is usually how it was. And if you remember when The Simpsons started out, it was like a gem like almost every episode. And the same thing with Phineas and Ferb. It was like that for me when I first discovered this thing. It was like, wow, this is really funny, and they're trying something new and innovative. Here's the thing, Phineas and Ferb lasted 4 seasons, but it was like through like an entire decade or something like that. I think they only really canceled it because they realized that they could move on to other things. One of those projects that they moved on to was a show called Milo Murphy's Law, which was the spiritual successor to Phineas and Ferb. And if you haven't watched Milo Murphy's Law, you really should. I think it's still on Disney Plus. Has Sabrina Carpenter on there doing a voice. I'm serious, that's Sabrina Carpenter, and the Weird Al Yankovic as the lead. And I think that show was so underappreciated, and I felt like it was put on such a back burner that eventually they had to do a drastic thing in the second season, I think it was, where they actually did a crossover with Phineas and Ferb. And I think that was probably planned from the get-go. There were several things that they planted seeds in the episode of to make that happen. And when it finally did, they got Doofenshmirtz, they got Phineas and Ferb, they got all the friends. If you watch Phineas and Ferb have a supporting cast like Isabella, Baljeet, and Buford, which are great characters in and of themselves. And here's the thing that Milo Murphy's Law did that really killed it, shot itself in the foot. They made Doofenshmirtz a cast member, like he was living with the main character's family. That was a death sentence. They were really trying to really get positive feed on that show. It just didn't work, and I think that's what led to its downfall. And unfortunately now it feels like, I guess only Phineas and Ferb are really what this animation studio is known for, which is a real shame because I actually think that there's other projects that I think they could do, and I think they have done, but I'm not really certain on that. Anyway, this is Mark from the Geek Church signing off.